The day in Paris began the way poetry wakes, quietly, in layers of light. The curtains inside the penthouse suite trembled against a pale breeze from the Seine. Beyond the balcony rail, the Eiffel Tower shimmered like a tall secret kept only for her. Inside, a hush lingered before the world would see her. The hour belonged entirely to Meghan, the Duchess of Sussex. The air smelled of roses and hairspray, of linen and luminous skin cream. Her team moved in rhythm around her, one adjusting silk, another steaming a gown that seemed spun from dawn itself. Someone tuned a playlist of soft French guitar, but mostly there was the whisper of makeup brushes gliding across light. Meghan sat before a mirror framed in gold. The bulbs glowed around her reflection, as if trying to keep up with her warmth. She wore a robe the colour of fresh cream, its belt tied loose, a study in ease. When she smiled at her reflection, it wasn't vanity, it was presence, an unguarded acknowledgment of self after years of noise, an affirmation that elegance can also be armour. Her makeup artist dabbed foundation so thin it looked like air had kissed her cheeks. Each stroke honoured the freckles the cameras once tried to erase. "Keep them," she had said, years ago. Today, they were constellations again, tiny proofs of authenticity in an industry obsessed with polish. The artist nodded silently, aware that this was not a face to transform, but a light to preserve. Nearby, her hairstylist, one of those magicians who understood balance and texture like a composer, gently shaped soft waves that framed her jaw. Paris sunlight struck the strands and made them glow auburn gold. "Perfect," Meghan murmured, voice low and kind, and the stylist grinned the way people grin when they're seen not just for work, but for artistry. On a chaise, her stylist had laid out the Balenciaga look selected the night before. A whisper of black silk, sculpted shoulders, the drape deliberate, the cut daring but dignified. Pierpaolo Piccioli had sent over a note, handwritten, tender in tone, thanking her for embodying what his designs meant: power without noise, softness with structure. She read it twice, smiling, fingers tracing the embossed P. As she dressed, the room changed temperature. Silence deepened. Anticipation filled every inch. Her team stood back slightly, letting her be. Meghan's movements were unhurried. Grace doesn't rush. The fabric slid across her shoulders like it had been waiting for this moment, finding its rightful wearer. When she finally faced the mirror again, there was that familiar duality, royal composure meeting Hollywood daring. The neckline framed her collarbones, the kind of geometry that photographers dream about. Her jewellery was minimal, a pair of diamond drop earrings that caught the light like a secret applause. Her makeup artist stepped closer for the final touch, a hint of rose on her lips. "Perfect," he whispered. Meghan smiled softly. "It's Paris," she replied. "Perfection is the air here." Someone poured champagne into crystal flutes. Her assistant handed her one, and she lifted it slightly, more in gratitude than celebration. "To art," she said, "and to team." They clinked glasses, laughter filling the suite for a second, before settling again into calm focus. Outside, the street below began to hum. Black cars lined up. The fashion crowd had begun migrating toward the show. From the balcony, the Eiffel Tower gleamed in mid-morning brilliance, as if even the Iron Giant wanted to watch. Her photographer, one trusted soul from her inner circle, hovered discreetly with a handheld camera. "Just a few behind-the-scenes shots," he murmured. She nodded. The lens captured the intimacy of this moment. Her adjusting an earring, the small laugh after an inside joke, her eyes glancing toward the window where Paris stretched endlessly. She posted later simply, "About last night. Thank you, Piccioli and Balenciaga." But behind those few words lived this entire orchestra of light, texture, kindness, and creation. Before stepping out, she took a breath and looked once more at the mirror. What stared back was not merely beauty, it was centeredness. Years of headlines, the noise of palaces and tabloids, the ache of departure, and the joy of reinvention, all of it distilled into the calm of this single inhale. Her stylist approached, voice quiet. "Ready, Duchess?" Meghan turned, that soft confidence settling like perfume. "Ready," she said. The elevator ride down felt cinematic, the muted thud of heels, the reflection of sequined light in mirrored walls, the pulse of something immense about to unfold. When the doors opened, the corridor smelled of polished marble and perfume. Security waited. Photographers were already gathering outside the lobby doors. She glanced at her assistant, took another small breath and stepped forward. Outside, the city erupted. Flashbulbs ignited like fireworks, the crowd's murmur swelling into gasps. Meghan's expression didn't change, serene, warm, assured. She waved once, the curve of her hand graceful as a signature. Paris saw her not as a guest, but as an answer. Elegance reincarnated, relevance reborn. The car door opened to a gust of cool October air scented with rain and perfume. Paris was humming, horns, heels, the laughter of the fashion set spilling across the cobblestones. Cameras began to shout her name before she was even visible, a tide of sound rising from every corner of the square. Then she appeared. The light seemed to rearrange itself to fit her. The Balenciaga silhouette glided from the car in one fluid motion, black silk that drank the daylight and gave it back as shadowed brilliance. Meghan's posture, shoulders back, chin lifted, eyes alive, wasn't performance. It was declaration. For a brief instant, Paris stilled. Photographers bent forward as if drawn by gravity. Every flash froze a micro moment, the tilt of her head, the fall of a sleeve, the faint smile that belonged to no one else. Inside those blinding bursts, she moved like water, letting the noise break around her but never touch her. Her team followed a few steps behind, keeping a respectful distance. The makeup artist watched from the curb, heart swelling at how the foundation still looked like morning light on skin. The stylist checked the drape, still flawless, still floating. Someone whispered, "C'est parfait." Security guided her toward the entrance, but Meghan paused once to wave to a group of young students standing behind the barriers. They held phones, sketch pads, and one small bouquet. She bent just enough to accept the flowers, a gesture so natural it made half the cameras drop to capture it. The girls gasped, one whispering, "Elle est si gentille." Inside the venue, the world transformed from street frenzy to dreamscape. Mirrors, glass, and chandeliers layered the room in reflected stars. The runway gleamed like wet marble, and the front row glittered with couture. But as Meghan entered, every head turned, the way crowds turn towards something inevitable. A hush rippled. It wasn't the forced pause reserved for royalty. It was the involuntary silence reserved for presence. She greeted Pierpaolo Piccioli with the affection of equals. They exchanged a brief embrace, artist to muse. "You made poetry wearable," she told him, and he answered, "You made it live." Seated front row, Meghan's aura was its own event. The cameras kept returning to her between every look, capturing her subtle reactions, the nod when fabric moved well, the smile when a model carried herself with pride. She wasn't there to be seen only. She was there to see, to honor creation. Around her, the fashion world leaned in. Editors scribbled notes about modern regality and effortless sovereignty. A well-known designer whispered, "She understands clothes as language." When the final model stepped out, applause filled the hall like thunder softened by velvet. Piccioli took his bow, then caught Meghan's eye. She rose, graceful, unhurried, and the entire room followed. Cameras flashed again, not for the runway now, but for her. Backstage, amid bouquets and congratulatory embraces, Meghan stepped into a smaller room lit only by bulbs and laughter. Her team was waiting, champagne already uncorked. The tension dissolved into joy, the shared relief of vision fulfilled. Her makeup still flawless, her smile radiant. She leaned against a mirrored wall and exhaled. "We did it," she said quietly. "Every bit of it was worth it." Someone handed her a phone. Her latest post was ready to upload. The short caption, the gratitude, the tag. She read it once, nodded, and pressed share. The simplicity was deliberate. She didn't need adjectives. Her presence had already written the paragraph the world would read in its heart. Within minutes, the post lit up across timelines. Comments poured in, journalists calling her the moment, stylists dissecting every fold of the gown, ordinary followers thanking her for representing authenticity in a space so often built on facade. Yet inside that private backstage corridor, Meghan wasn't scrolling. She was listening, to laughter, to her team, to the quiet pulse of satisfaction that art leaves behind. Outside, Paris night descended slowly. The Seine caught the last amber of sunset, and the tower lights blinked awake one by one. Meghan stood by the glass doors, watching their reflection in the river. Behind her, her makeup artist adjusted a strand of hair that had slipped free. "You looked like light walking," he said. She smiled. It was the dress, the moment, the people. But they knew it was more. It was how she carried herself, not above the world, but through it, unbothered by noise, guided by intention. As the car whisked her away from the venue, the city blurred into gold lines and laughter fading into distance. From every direction, billboards and phones were already replaying her arrival, her wave, her walk. She had been there only a few hours, but Paris had folded her into its story, the way it folds light into rain. The team chatted quietly as they drove back to the suite. Meghan leaned her head against the window, makeup still untouched, eyes reflecting the moving lights. "Tomorrow," she whispered, "we rest. Tonight, we remember." The photographer, still clutching his camera, looked at the last image captured, her stepping from the car, silk catching the wind, eyes steady. He knew he'd framed more than a picture. He'd framed a state of being. Paris had always belonged to beauty, but that night it also belonged to grace. The suite welcomed her back the way an old song welcomes silence after applause. Candles burned low on every table. Petals of pale pink roses floated inside crystal bowls. The Eiffel Tower now shimmered in midnight silver, its reflection trembling across the Seine like scattered jewellery. Her heels clicked once on the marble before she slipped them off and let her bare feet rest on the cool floor. The room exhaled with her, a collective sigh of fulfillment. Every mirror still carried traces of the morning, a forgotten brush, a compact left half open, silk hangers like notes from an orchestra that had played perfection. Her team moved softly around her, their voices low, happy. One fetched water, another folded the robe she had worn earlier. "You were magnificent," someone said, and Meghan laughed the way stars might if they could answer. "Was I?" she asked, half teasing. "You made the whole night look easy." "Then we did our job," she answered. The makeup artist began the ritual of gently lifting the glamour from her skin. Each stroke of the remover pad revealed the same radiance beneath. The foundation had lasted, but it was her natural light that lingered. "I'll never get over how calm you are," he murmured. Meghan smiled, eyes half closed. "Calm is the rebellion," she said quietly. "They expect chaos." Outside, thunder rolled far away, gentle, distant. Paris smelled of rain again, and she opened the balcony doors to let it in. The breeze lifted a strand of hair. The city lights blinked in response, as though answering her heartbeat. Her stylist joined her on the balcony, still in a black jacket, sleeves rolled up, eyes glowing with that after-show high. "It's wild out there," he said. "Everyone's talking. They said you were the night's best dressed." She turned slightly, laughter like silk. "It's not a competition, love. Fashion is communion, between the maker and the wearer." He nodded, watching the raindrops collect on the railing. "Still, it's nice when communion trends." They both laughed, the sound soft against the Paris hum below. Inside, someone turned on gentle jazz. The melody curled through the suite like smoke. Meghan poured tea instead of champagne this time, the small domestic gesture grounding the grandeur. She sat on the edge of the chaise, robe back around her shoulders, the Balenciaga dress now hanging nearby, its fabric still carrying the scent of stage lights and applause. She watched it for a moment, thoughtful. "Every dress tells a story," she said. "That one was about courage that doesn't have to shout." Her assistant looked up. "And what's tomorrow's story?" Meghan leaned back, eyes reflecting candlelight. "Tomorrow's story," she said, "is gratitude." The team slowly packed their kits, laughter winding down. One by one, they hugged her good night. Each goodbye felt like a thread, gently tying them to the memory of this day. After the last door closed, the suite fell into quiet again. She walked barefoot to the balcony, teacup warm in her hands. The city stretched below, bridges glistening, headlights streaming, cafes still alive with midnight conversations. From somewhere far off, a violinist played on a corner, the notes drifting up faintly. Meghan rested her arms on the balcony rail, chin on her wrist, letting the night wash over her. The air smelled of rain and magnolia. The river whispered secrets. She thought of the faces from the crowd, the little bouquet from the girls, the gentle pride in her team's eyes. She thought of the long road that led here, the silence she had endured, the noise she had walked away from, the steady rebuilding of self through purpose and art. And she smiled. Not the red carpet smile, but the private one reserved for truth. Her phone chimed softly. Messages from friends poured in, admiration, hearts, words of awe. One text stood out, from someone who knew her heart before fame ever found her. "You look free." She replied simply, "I am." The clock whispered past midnight. She placed the teacup down, drew the curtains halfway, and let the city keep glowing for her. The last thing she saw before sleep was the Eiffel Tower's beam sweeping slowly across the sky, like a camera flash for no one but her. Morning came quietly, as if the city itself didn't want to disturb her rest. The first light crept through gauzy curtains, dissolving the candle smoke left from the night before. Somewhere in the distance, a cafe opened its doors, and the scent of baked butter and roasted beans drifted upward through the Paris air. Meghan stirred beneath linen sheets, the rhythm of the river folding into her breathing. For a moment she lay still, eyes closed, listening to the muffled hum of life outside. The tap of heels on stone, a bicycle bell, a burst of laughter. Paris was moving again, but inside the suite, time held its breath. She rose slowly, robe tied loose, hair unpinned and free. The mirror reflected not the Duchess from the runway, but the woman who had built her own calm amid storm. She smiled at the difference. Both were real. In the half-light she looked both untouchable and tender, proof that strength can wear softness like silk. Her team began to trickle in quietly. The makeup artist carried fresh flowers, the stylist brought breakfast, croissants, figs, black coffee. They spoke in low voices, that familiar mixture of exhaustion and glow that follows a perfect evening. "You broke the internet," someone said. Meghan shook her head with a laugh. "Let's not break things, let's build them." They gathered by the window, plates balanced on laps, replaying the night. The makeup artist scrolled through photos, the ones from backstage, the balcony, the walk into the show. Each image shimmered with warmth rather than glamour. Every candid frame caught her laughing, listening, being. "These are better than any editorial," he murmured. Meghan looked at them one by one. "Keep those," she said. "That's who we are." Outside, the tower's steel glowed gold in the new sun. Pigeons circled lazily over the river, and the city began to hum with routine again. But even in its normal rhythm, Paris seemed to carry an aftertaste of last night, a quiet acknowledgment that something rare had passed through its streets. By mid-morning, Calls from magazines began arriving. Vogue Paris, Elle, Harper's Bazaar, Le Monde. Everyone wanted comment, detail, confirmation of what they already felt. That Meghan had not simply attended Paris Fashion Week. She had defined it. She accepted none of the interviews. "The pictures tell the story," she said softly. "Let them speak." Between calls, she sat at the small desk near the balcony, writing notes by hand. Thank yous to her team, to Pierpaolo Piccioli, to the hotel staff who had kept the suite discreet and warm. Her handwriting, flowing and deliberate, turned gratitude into art. "It's important," she told her assistant. "Gratitude is the seam that holds beauty together." When she finally stepped out for a short walk, Paris looked different. People smiled as she passed. Some waved shyly. No paparazzi frenzy, just quiet recognition. She wore oversized sunglasses and a camel coat, but still there was that aura, what one passerby whispered as la lumière tranquille, the tranquil light. She paused at a cafe terrace and ordered tea. The waiter, barely 20, stammered a thank you for representing kindness. She laughed, touched his arm lightly and told him, "Kindness represents itself. We just carry it for a while." He repeated the phrase under his breath as he walked away, smiling. From the terrace she could see a poster across the boulevard, already showing a still from last night's event. Her silhouette emerging from the car, the crowd behind her blurred. Below the image, the caption read simply, "Meghan a Paris." No surname, no title, just presence. It felt right. Back at the suite, the team was packing. Garment bags zipped shut, brushes cleaned, boxes labelled. Meghan moved through the space, touching each bouquet, each note left on the counter. She paused by the Balenciaga dress one last time, fingertips grazing the smooth fabric. It no longer smelled of perfume or spotlight, it smelled of memory. Her stylist joined her. "It's funny," he said. "The dress was beautiful last night, but hanging there it looks like it's sleeping." She nodded. "Every performance deserves rest," she said. "Even fabric." They laughed quietly together. Then she looked out the window once more, the skyline stretching like a story without end. "This city gives you perspective," she murmured. "It teaches you that elegance isn't an outfit, it's an attitude." By afternoon, the suite was empty, except for her and the photographer. He showed her the last shot on his camera. Her standing on the balcony at dawn, robe fluttering, the tower behind her. No makeup, no pose, just truth. "Should I send it out?" he asked. She studied the image, the raw honesty of it. "Not yet," she said. "Let's keep one thing just for us." He nodded, understanding. Some beauty is meant to remain whispered. As evening approached and her car waited below, she took one last slow glance around the room. The echo of laughter, the faint outline of last night's candle wax, the half-empty teacup on the table. Every detail belonged to a memory already gilded in gold. Her assistant asked softly, "How do you feel?" Meghan smiled, closing the suite door behind her. "Grateful," she said, "and ready for whatever story finds me next." Downstairs, the doorman tipped his hat. The city gleamed like a living photograph. As the car pulled away, Paris blurred once more. Light, stone, and sky folding together until only her reflection remained in the window. She touched the glass, tracing the city's outline like signing a letter. Behind her, the Eiffel Tower began its hourly sparkle. Ahead of her, another journey waited. New faces, new conversations, new ways to turn kindness into presence. But somewhere in that glittering skyline, the night she had given to Paris still shimmered back, a promise that grace always leaves an echo. And so the story closed not with applause, but with quiet continuity. A woman, a city, and a moment suspended between them. Proof that when elegance meets authenticity, the world does not simply watch, it remembers. To all my curious Sussex family, thank you all for watching, and do not forget to subscribe, like, and put a comment. Bye-bye. See then in our next episode.